very simple extraction method. So that's why, from our point of view, we're ahead of the pack. And I often like to say that, we have always believed it's one of the most compelling uranium development projects at that next level waiting for development at the moment. And it comes from those 3 points. Nobody else can probably boast those elements, and they can't boast the costs that come from those elements. And then just if you look at the financial outcomes at the bottom of the project, at the bottom of the slide there, sorry, you can see they're very, very healthy. And again, they could be a hell of a lot better if we all have the belief we have with the uranium price. This slide's always a little telling for me, and it's a nice picture to show particularly new investors. It shows we're in the Sahara Desert. It shows that we don't have any people or buildings around us. And so, we are essentially a fully permitted project. We have a development permit for the project already. We've done a very good study on the impact in the local environment and the populations, and you've still got to do it even though you're in such an isolated location. So that's one thing I'd point out there. The other thing I'd point out is that that excavator has just dug that material up. You can see there's no rocks, it's friable material, so we're not crushing grinding. There's a lot of natural savings with this project. And then you can see the uranium mineralization pointed to with that arrow just being below the surface. And really from that point down, 3 or 4 meters, 5 meters at the most, you've got the entirety of the ore body. So a telling picture for a lot of reasons. Sahara Desert's a fabulous place to visit. Again, it's been very safe for us. We've always had a very positive experience in Mauritania. It's a good country. Just, on Mauritania for 1 second, the US Embassy was built a couple of years ago, $300 million, which means the US are never going to leave Mauritania. The French, it was a former French colony, and the French have a large embassy there, probably the size of Central Park in New York. 7,000 or 8,000 kids go there each day for school. So it's a very progressive country in West Africa, and both the French and the US consider it to be a beachhead on the west coast of Africa for them. So very important, meaning they've got to keep Mauritania in the same guise it's been. So again, positive experience for us all the way through, compared to other parts of Africa, I am sure. We just put this slide in because it's interesting for people to see. Broadly, got a very, very good, clever resource team, development team, both metallurgists and geology. I'd count in there have been exceptional in getting us to where we are in this process. And the process you see is simple and clean, and it works. And we have developed it over now a number of years, and we're confident that it's robust, and that we get the low capex because of that robust project and the low opex. And we still believe there are more opportunities to improve it. If you read some of those slides that I said, read in your own time further back, you'll see one of them is just now looking at a clean sheet review, essentially, of the project, just to see where the opportunities lie for another set of eyes to go over and see where we can improve what we've done. And that's positive. We're always open to how we can improve things, but it's a good process all the same. I think this is a good slide for shareholders in general, but new shareholders, just to understand the pack of projects. We'd like to add more companies into this slide, but the ASX gets a bit edgy when we put producers in or projects with different levels of study. But what it's saying is, along the bottom axis there, you can see that's the project capital. So we're that $62 million number, and we are, sorry, the red ball, yep, that's shown as well. And then you can see our market capitalization, which is probably a little lower than what that graph shows at the moment. And every other project is to the right of us is a much higher capital. Some of them are very, very high. And frankly, even Boss, that capital that's shown for them is probably an initial capital. I'm a metallurgist background. What I find missing in the description of in situ leach projects is that every time you put a new set of wells in, you have to do repeat development capital. So that's probably one of their initial capital numbers. And then as they go on, they need to add more capital in. So it probably doesn't represent the story completely. When we build our project, that's our capital. And unless we do an expansion, then that's what you will see. So it just shows that, as we say up on the right-hand side of that slide, the low capital means it's a very doable project, a financeable project, as I've been explaining. The low all-in sustaining cash costs, which is the size of the bubble, similarly means good positive cash flow, and the low market cap means, you know, we've got a long way to move and generate. So if you're a shareholder already, well done. That's why we're there. We think there's a big uplift for Aura once everybody really understands the quality of the project and when the uranium price starts moving. The uranium market in general, I'm not going to dwell on. There's a lot of experts in the market who talk about it, and they probably talk about it more eloquently than me. But there is, you know, clearly a push for a green future, a low carbon future, and that's very, very positive for uranium at the moment. And again, why many of you are on the call. Clearly, the supply chain for uranium production is a bit of a mess. And, you know, it's a bit of a mess with some very big capital projects not knowing if they can come back online. So there's a lot of uncertainty. We still get a lot of corporate approaches from big players wondering how they can get involved, because I think there continues to be uncertainty about what some of these big mines are doing, and the producers are concerned. So in an interesting sense, a smaller project like Aura can be very potent for even some of the big players, because it gives them a marginal level of certainty in their production frame. China's clearly doing a big build. I'm not telling you something you don't know there. But what I would say, and a point that motivates me about the uranium price always, is every day, every moment, every month that ticks by in this uranium market where the utilities are standing out from signing long-term contracts is closer to the point when they really need to sign those long-term contracts. And if you look back in the records, there's a slide I used to have up showing what happened to the uranium market in the mid-2000s when we hit $140. And that's the point when all the utilities tried to squeeze through the door at once, and they started screaming the bids from outside the door, and the price went through the roof. So that's what's going to happen. And you'll be surprised that I think when it happens, the price will spark and perk up very quickly in just a few weeks. And you're going to need to be set for that, because it's exactly what they did in 2005. That chart clearly shows the deficit. You've seen it before. I'm not going to go into it in a great amount of detail, but it's a positive backdrop. It's still been there. It's just, I think the utilities have to play their role, and then we'll see the price move well. The Hagen project, as I said, a very large project. We have a completed scoping study on this project. It's not the core focus of the company right at this moment. We really want to get Tiris in the mind of all the investors. We want to get it into development. We want to get it funded. And we think that's the best bet to drive the company and the company's share price forward and give all the shareholders a great return. Very, very good financials on this project, and some very interesting aspects leading. Also, it's an energy story as well. You know, if we can get a vanadium product out of this and then have an associated battery manufacturing element to the project, which is what we've always contemplated, it's a great energy, green future sort of project as well. So we are energy all the way through in the company. The gold and base metals are really fabulous tenements. We love them to death, and we love them to death because there's this monster just north of us, the Tasiast gold mine. It's 21 million ounces. We're on the same belt. We're just 30 or 40 kilometers to the south, and we've essentially got unexplored greenstone. If you had that greenstone belt in Kalgoorlie, it's exactly the same rocks. You'd have 100 companies on our tenement. So we're very fortunate to have those, and we have got a lot of belief of those in the future. and we are just starting a small amount of work in the last few weeks on that again, and hoping to build that up to be a much larger project. Just for the record, when through the Tashiest development process, they developed 1 million ounces with a company called Redback, which was formerly a West Australian company, became a Canadian company, and they got 1 million ounces, and then they sold that for $250 million many, many years ago. Then that 1 million ounces was taken on. They cracked the geological code, if you like, the plumbing, and they got it up to the 20 million ounces. Kinross bought it for $9.7 billion. So there's the prize. It's down the path. But again, we're very, very positive about that as a project. Just in summary, the uranium sentiment, in our opinion, has changed strongly in the last 2 years since we first released the DFS. There's a good tailwind forming. Aura's got really clean projects and a clean set of heels with its project to take advantage of that tailwind, and to have such a low-cost development project, again with the short time frame into production, is really positive. And really then the rest of the projects there I've got listed are just garnishes and collateral benefits along the way, which will sow dividends for the shareholders down the path. So that's all I have on the presentation. I know there's a few questions that have been listed, so I'll stop there and hand back to maybe our moderator and work out what we're going to do with the questions.
Well, thanks for that, Pete. Yes, we have had quite a few questions come through, so I'll jump into them. So with the company progressing towards relisting, I understand that Aura needs to spend a certain amount on exploration. However, is the relisting only contingent on the exploration spend, or is there a time frame on this? Yeah, look, it's a good question. Thank you. We would say that it really is the exploration spend. I think the ASX is doing this to a number of companies now who have been suspended. They want to make sure that when they put down their plans on paper and they make their promises to shareholders, that they actually carry them out. It's nothing really more complicated than that. So if we spend the money, we have the firm belief that we will be relisted. And the time frame we are working on, it's always, you got to be cautious because it really is the ASX's decision. But we would be hoping, within a couple of months and maybe sooner, we can get relisted. But we've got to be very cognizant of the fact that it's just the ASX's decision there, not ours. So I won't presuppose what they might want to do, but we believe it can be in a reasonably short time frame if we complete that work as we've listed. Thanks, Pete. Just another one on the relisting, sorry. So are you expecting to raise more money to execute the work required for the ASX relisting? No. Easy. And can you please again elaborate on the loyalty rights options, including the key dates and eligibility? Okay, so it's a 1-for-3 rights issue. So every 3 shares you own, you're entitled to purchase 1 option. The upfront payment will be 0.013 of a cent. Sorry, 0.01. It'll be 0.013 of a dollar per option, and the expiry is going to be in 3 years. The options will be listed and traded on the ASX, and the exercise price will be 5.2 cents per option. I know you did cover this in the presentation, but for someone that might have missed it, what is the status of the vanadium project in Sweden? The status is that we have completed the scoping study, and we will, inform the market more about that in the future. We have been given an additional year for the development timeframe by the Swedish government because of the COVID issues. We have a small part-time team in Sweden looking at that for us. Again, politically, Sweden's really interesting because there's another political shift going on there now, and they need to get developments underway and mineral developments underway. Aura sits there with the vanadium project, and again, it's strongly
energy. It's not a mineral project as much as it's an energy project. And we have spoken a lot to the Swedish government and to a lot of Swedish ministers in the House, saying that the green future coming forward for Sweden is important, and Aura can be a part of it. So it's a scoping study stage. Once we get Tyrus underway again, we'll put some more focus under that, spend some money, get maybe more of a Swedish management team doing the work there. But it's a great positive project. It's in a really good environment to have a vanadium project like that in Europe. So yeah, so I just want to mention one point which was just pointed out to me then. The record date for the rights issue option will be 1 month after the relisting occurs, just so you're aware of that.
Okay. There's one, again, you've already covered this off, but is the company planning to spin out any of its projects to focus on the Tyrus uranium project?
What we will do is we will take in the spin-outs have a connotation of a whole lot of other issues and words. What we will do is we will take some funding in for separate projects, maybe the gold, even Hagen potentially at different times. And obviously spin-outs and separate listings, as we have talked about in the past, are always options. But we've got no specific plans to do that just now. We are just focused on Tyrus, focused on keeping the money up to the projects. But if we need money to get the individual projects like the gold or vanadium underway, and we don't want to drain the resources of Aura, which we're focusing, solely with shareholders on development of Tyrus, then that's what we will do.
Okay, and with such a low capex for the Tyrus uranium project, is the company likely to raise capital for production through equity or debt?
Yeah, always how long's a piece of string, I suppose. We will see what options we have in the future, and we'll make the decision then. I would suggest, with the size of the capital, we could do a good portion in equity, and we would definitely have good offers in debt. And there's a lot of different ways to finance it. It's not just pure debt from a bank. So I'll just say we've got a lot of options. Looking at all of those, we aren't short on financing opportunities from what we can see at this early stage.
There's one you might not be able to give too much detail on, but what is the peak annual uranium production, and how many years will it take to get there?
Sorry, for the Tyrus project?
I assume so, yes. Yeah.
Okay, let's just say that in general, we are going to produce around about 800,000 to 1 million pounds of uranium per annum. And we expect to be there within the first 2 years. It's not because we don't have an open pit with a uranium resource at the base. There's no cutbacks and everything that expose more of the mineralization. We essentially have a flat-lying deposit, and in that flat-lying deposit, we just got to get enough excavators at those locations to get the material up and going. So it's very easy to get to nameplate capacity as long as the plant is operating well. It's a tiny baby-sized plant, you've got to understand. So that's the sort of the big benefit of the project. So no, we'll be up to nameplate. Is that going to be the peak of the production? I would hope not. We have looked at expanding the project. Now, an expansion of the project would potentially come from the fact that we've got, say, we've got 17 million pounds in measured and indicated out of that 50 million pounds of inferred resource. There's plenty of room still to get more of the residual in between 17 and 50 up into inventory. And if we get enough of that, then we can expand the project. What we've looked at is in the future the potential to expand the project up to 3 million pounds, but we need to have the base inventory and resource worked out. What happens in an operation is there's so much you can do from Melbourne, from your head office, wherever that is. When you get into production, when you've got your team sitting out there and they're sitting in the bar after dinner and they're bored and they say, what are we going to do tomorrow, boss? Well, let's go and look at that uranium resource out in the left-hand corner, and and everybody starts working out how they can get more out of it better, sooner, faster, and that process is to come. So I'm confident that we can do an expansion down the track and get a much higher production. Can't put numbers on it right now, but we don't see this being a 1 million per annum uranium pound project for the whole 12 to 15 year mine life. We expect it to be longer than that.
Another one just on Tiris. So is Aura open to JVs for Tiris, or would the company prefer to move the project into production itself?
Yeah, we don't probably think, no, we don't think it's necessary to JV the project. Again, you look at our peers, people with several $100 million worth of capital. Go back to the last cycle, see what happened. Projects start at the beginning of the cycle, they have a large capital, and they end up at the end of the cycle without a development project, and they're not gone. They should JV. We have a small capital. We are a really strong little independent company. We can fund it ourselves. We're open to help, but we don't think we need it. We think we can fund it without going the JV route.
We've got time for one more. It's quite an interesting one. So will Aura Energy be listed in a uranium ETF soon?
No plans, no plans, no plans, no plans.
Okay, well, that's all we have time for today. And as I mentioned earlier, a copy of this recording will be available on the Aura website on Monday. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hosting you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.